Thank you for joining us today at Wildly Undivided. If you enjoy these studies, hit the thumbs up and subscribe.
Ecclesiastes chapter 6, y'all ready for this? What do you think life without contentment looks like? It's interesting that you put it that way because what we're gonna read, it says it's like having a very strong appetite and never having your fill of food. Ruth and I experienced this because for the past 4 months, we've been trying to cut out carbs and sugar. And before that, after every meal, you know what we would eat? Carbs and sugar and dessert. And so it's a habit, and then it's also a craving. And so you can eat a ton of food and not feel satisfied because you're craving something different than what you just ate. And we eat really good. You know what I had for lunch today? Filet mignon. Yeah, you know why? Because it was in my freezer. So I thawed it out, cooked it, and had it. It was delicious. Even after eating a sumptuous meal, you still remain hungry. And that's the idea of a lack of contentment. You just never find satisfaction. So what is it to have contentment? To find satisfaction, to enjoy whatever food is set before you, much or little, dessert or no dessert, and be satisfied. That is difficult. That's extremely difficult. It's so difficult that the text we're about to read calls it the power of God. That if you do not have contentment, God has not given you the power to be content. So we like to think of like Superman has superpowers. This life lived at the peak. It's super ability. And when we talk about contentment, and I hope you see what I'm talking about as we go through this, it is the power of God. And what the author is going to talk about, how a person was not given that power. God did not grant them that power. They had everything, and God did not give them the power. And so their life is vanity. Let's get in this. It says in verse 1, "There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind." Or if you look in the like King James or the New King James, it says it's common to all mankind. The reason why they translate it both ways is the word is placed upon or very great or broad. So it could literally be either or. No matter what, this very great evil of not having contentment is a burden on mankind. And it is common to all people. It is broad, it is wide, and it is on the shoulders of everybody. We all experience this evil. That's what he says in verse 1. Verse 2, "A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor." What do you want in this life? Wealth, possessions, and honor. Honor is respect. It's esteem, it's grandeur. Wealth is financial security. Possessions are the enjoyment of things of this world. Imagine in a world where there's no real toilets and you have running water. You have a toilet that flushes. That is a possession, right? It is the grandeur of comfort. You have all of these things. God has given you all of these things, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet God does not give him power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. This power to enjoy them. What do you think that means? I'm reminded of Potiphar. So Joseph, son of Jacob, or Israel, one of the younger tribesmen, his brothers betrayed him, sold him to the Ishmaelites. He was carried off into Egypt. And there he was a slave to a man named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar was pretty much the head of the Secret Service. Like he was the guy who watched over Pharaoh and took care of all those things. So very high influential person. He had servants, he had slaves, he had a beautiful wife, he had a beautiful home, lots of land. And yet his wife chases after Joseph. So imagine this. You have everything in the world. You have possessions, you have wealth, you have honor, you have the position of a lifetime, you have authority, you have a beautiful golden ticket of a spouse, and yet another man enjoys your bed. Another man enjoys your food and your prosperity. So it's interesting because God has not given him the opportunity to enjoy the things that who gave it to him, that God gave to him. God, I mean, like, the wealth wasn't a problem. The honor wasn't a problem. The possessions weren't a problem. The problem was he didn't have power. He didn't have the power of God. And another man had the power to enjoy what God had given somebody else. And so you can see where the author says, like, this is evil. This isn't good. This is something that sours the stomach. This is something that puts a knot in your throat that makes you say, ugh, like that poor man, that poor guy. He lost his family to a nobody. Then he goes on in verse 3, if a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than him. So what does he have? This man, what is the possessions that he has? So he has many heirs, he has many children, and a very long life. I think, honestly, all the things that I would look for, you'd be considered blessed. Absolutely. Oh, God has given you many children. Oh, you must be so blessed. Like, God is so good to you. But then it goes on and it says, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things. He doesn't appreciate his kid. He doesn't appreciate his old age. He doesn't appreciate the good things in his life. And then it says something interesting. And he has no burial. So that means he died, right? So this man lived the life that we would think, oh, I want to live that life. And then he died. What does it mean not to have a burial? Nobody buries you. So this could potentially be that he died in battle, he died in war, like the army that he was with was conquered by the other army, and they would just leave your body out there. They wouldn't bury you. It was a sign of disrespect, right? Like you're a bunch of dogs for the birds to eat. And God actually uses this as a sign of disrespect because he says, I'll give your flesh to the birds and to the dogs. This is God's punishment. So he had all of those good things. The key here is that his soul could not find satisfaction. And when he died, he actually didn't have honor. He had dishonor. His family didn't find his bones, or he didn't have a proper burial. In this society, burial is a really big deal. An example would be David took the bones of Saul and he went and he buried them because he was just hanging on a wall, and then and they buried him in a place. Being buried with your fathers is a royal thing. When a king dies, he would go and be buried with his fathers, the generations of the kings before him. And then it says he was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they did not bury him with his fathers. They buried him, but out back with the commoners. It does carry a place of honor and respect. And so this person dies in a life of dishonor. And so if you look at the circumstances, you'd say, okay, so he had everything, and yet when he died, he had nothing. So whatever kind of character, whatever kind of lifestyle he lived, there was no burial. He wasn't satisfied with his life. It's almost like he was depressed. It could be all the way to the extremes of depression or just simply dissatisfaction, always wanting more and not satisfied. It says that man, it would be better to have been a stillborn baby. It would have been better to be a baby who lived in the womb, the warmth, the comfort, the heartbeat, that drum, the constant feeding of the life from the mother's womb. And then when the baby dies, it died in comfort. And then it's delivered and it's gone. It's better to have been that baby than that old man. And you got to wonder, if nobody buried him, but he has 100 children, you must wonder what his children thought of him. He's not a good guy. So then he goes on and he carries this idea forward in verse 4, talking about the baby. And it says, he comes in vanity and goes in darkness. And in darkness, its name is covered. That child never really knows life, nor has life really known that child. And we know with greater theology than this author that child is in the presence of the Lord. Perfection, he's in glory. It's a wonderful place for that child. And from his perspective, he says, verse 5, moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than the other man, rather than him. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good. Do not all go to the one place? So if you were to live 1,000 years twice, don't we all go to Sheol? Don't you still die? Now, this is a man who reads his Bible, because you go back and you read of Methuselah and Enoch, and you read of all these Old Testament people who lived hundreds of years, Enoch. But the point being, even if we accomplished everything we want, now I don't know about you guys, but I've been studying like longevity science, how to live a very long life, a healthy life, not just long. You don't want to be living a long time and being sick. You want to live very long and be healthy. We have a desire to live for a very long time. And so even if we accomplish that, let's say you lived for 1,000 years twice and you're dissatisfied, it's vanity. I mean, think about all the things that we think will satisfy us. Comfort, work, relaxation, relationships, marriage, toilets, sex, drugs, alcohol. There's this idea that says, if I get these things, if I can just have a better this, a stronger that, then I will be satisfied. But look, if 1,000 years go by and you're the playboy who gets all the girls, you still won't be satisfied. Or if you have the best marriage in history, you still can't be satisfied. It's vanity. You have to enjoy the good things in life. So it doesn't matter how old or how young. The point is to be living in the moment and to enjoy all the little things, because you'll still die. Death comes for us all. Unless Jesus comes, then we get raptured and no death for us. Verse 7. So we shift gears a little bit. All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. What is he talking about? Why do we work? To eat. So after you've worked, you go home and you eat. And then what happens? You eat. You get hungry. So you go back to work. There's a cycle of continuing to work to continue to get food. All toil is to get food in your mouth. The general idea is the hierarchy of needs. You need food and water and shelter. Once you've achieved food, water, shelter, then you look for a spouse. Once you find a spouse, then you want a family. Once you get a family, then you want to do this, and then you want to do that. This generation of needs. Once a need is met, you move on to the next need. There never is really an end to needs. So the key to this is finding where your appetite can be satisfied. And he says, verse 8, what advantage has the wise man over the fool, and what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? So he contrasts the wise and the fool, and then he contrasts the wealthy and the poor. And he even says that the poor person can speak properly. The poor person actually understands social decorum and has manners. What's the difference between all these if they are all dissatisfied? The wise person is always looking for something for his mouth. The fool also. The poor man, the wealthy man. Listen, even the guy who kind of gets it, the poor guy who understands poverty, yet is rich in wisdom, still has a hungry appetite.
These studies are recorded live with God's people. We encourage you to find a study in a Bible-believing and teaching church and connect with God's people in God's Word. Have a blessed day.
Verse 9, better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is vanity and striving after wind. If you look around this room, what can your eyes see? People, things. You can only see what's inside this room. How does your mind wander into something more than what you see here? Imagination. So what he's saying is, let your eyes take hold of what's in front of you. Appreciate the things you actually have in your sight, in your possession, not the imagination of what you think you should have, or the imagination of that wandering lust or desire. It's appreciating your position at work and not being like, I deserve X. I do more than that. It's recognizing, opening your eyes, paying attention in the moment to the thing, and taking hold of that which you actually see. Our world breeds dissatisfaction. So in our society, it's you need a better car, you need better clothing, you need more money, you need a better spouse, you need a better sibling, you need better parents, we watch Boy Meets World. Mr. Feeney is just this old man who's a teacher, and he's the wise one. He's ever loving, but he's stern and he's strict. And you think to yourself, oh, if only I had a Feeney. If only I had this teacher. And we get into a mode that says, if only. And when you start getting into if only, your mind only functions in imagination land. It doesn't function in reality because you start creating a different life. You start thinking of who you might be or the situation you might be in. And this is where a lot of like adultery comes from. This is where a lot of like abuse comes from when it comes to work. If only I had more money, and then now you're stealing from the company. And so if only somebody would appreciate me, if only people recognize me, if only people would compliment me. And all of a sudden, here comes this man, and he recognizes you, and he compliments you, and he's saying nice things to you. And the next thing you know, you're cheating on your husband. So the if onlys is what this is talking about. That your eyes should take hold of things. You can't let the if onlys take hold of you. What your circumstances are in life, they're reality, and they can be appreciated. If only my wife would love me better, I would be happier. If only my husband would do more chores, I would be happy. Or if only my parents raised me better, it's their fault. This is a real thing, especially nowadays, kids are doing it because parents did not do a good job with their kids because they were taught wrong. They were taught that discipline is bad and like spanking is bad and telling children no is bad. And so they didn't. And now their kids are mouthy brats. And now they can't hold a job. They don't get along with people. Nobody likes them. They're unbearable to work with. And so who do they blame? Who do the children blame? Their parents. If only they disciplined me. I went through this. My parents, man, they let me do anything I wanted. There was no rules in my house. Literally, 13 years old, I could get away with anything I wanted. I can't live with if only. The circumstances of my life have created in me who I am. And Jesus used those things to bring me to my knees and bring me to him and delivered me from the wrath of God to come. So if only doesn't function in the Christian worldview. If only doesn't work because the path that we have taken is the path that we've been given. And the path that we've been given has brought us to the destiny that God has so desired. And that's what he talks about next. He says this. Verse 10, whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which passes like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? Right? It's short, but it's pithy. You read it and you don't, honestly, I've read this a few times and I didn't get it because I didn't study it. There's so much value in studying it. But he says this, whatever has come to be has already been named, and it's known what man is and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than him. So who would man dispute with who is stronger than him? God. Why would he dispute with him? Man is not content with what God has given us. Listen, whatever has come has already been named. It's another way of saying it's already been decided. It's already been called out. God said, you're going to be born in Mexico. You're going to have black hair. You're going to have blue eyes. You're going to be tall. You're going to be short. It's already been named. You're going to be a boy. You're going to be a girl. God has spoken. And listen, it is known what man is. Everything about us is known. Nothing new under the sun, but every hair on our head is numbered. And when you start losing hair, you start questioning, like, God, are you really keeping track? He's determined it. He knows us in and out. I knew you before I knit you together in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I had a destiny for you. I had a desire for you. I made you who you are. Now what I need you to do is come to me and relinquish yourself to embrace that destiny. I add a little bit there because there's so much. You must be born again. We are only an image of the things we ought to be. We are created in the image of God, but that image is marred. We need to be born again into the image of the righteousness of God, into the full creation of God's Son. We are not as we ought to be yet, but he started this work in us and he is going to complete it. So it is known, it is named, he knows who we are, and we can't argue with someone who's greater than us. Why can't we argue with our parents when we're 5 years old? They know better. Now here's the thing. I have like apprentices who don't know what they're talking about, and they make some sense sometimes. And I'm like, you're right, I'm wrong. Wisdom is wisdom, no matter the age. But when you tell a kid, no ice cream, no caffeine, no this, no that, when you tell them this is the way it's gonna be, I have so decided it, and they come back with their reasons are insufficient. They can't argue with you because you know what's best for them. This is what it says. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for a man while he lives the few days of his vain life? Who truly knows what is good for man? And if we increase our words in argument, more words, more vanity is what he's saying. If we argue with God that I should have been born here, I should have been black, I should have been a man, I should have been brown eyes, rich instead of poor, I should have been beautiful instead of ugly. God, you made me wrong. God, you have given me the wrong circumstances. I was born in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong body, and I have issue with that. That's called many words, and it's vain words. He says, what value is that? What advantage? Verse 11. And then he says, you don't even know what is good. Who knows what is good for us? The designer. We really worry about the future, particularly who's going to take care of my dog? Who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to take care of my wife? Who's going to take care of my mom, my dad, my brothers, my siblings? When I'm the hero of my life, when I'm responsible for my world, what happens when I'm not here? We get weighed down with the potential of what happens after me? What happens after I go? And so he says in verse 12, our life is like a shadow. Who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? Only God. And I'll tell you what, we're all here. Somebody was before us, and the world just kept turning. Now, it's interesting because a shadow in the desert is a really big deal. When we know it here, if you're walking in the shade in the summer versus no shade in the summer, shadows are great. Shadows are amazing. That's life. It's great. And then it's gone. We spin. But technically we shift and we're gone. And what happens after us? That's always going to linger in our hearts. And so another layer of this superpower of contentment is doing all that you can do while you're here in the moment, appreciating it, recognizing where you are, where you've been, but leaving it behind, being content with the things that are before us. Let your eyes be satisfied with what you have and not the imagination. And when that shadow passes, God will take care of everything else. I've seen it. The blessing of being in church is we participate with a lot of widows and a lot of widowers. Widower is a man who's lost his wife, and they make it. They keep going. Life keeps going. It doesn't mean the pain goes away. It doesn't mean it gets easier. It's just they don't forget. Instead of saying the want is the key, I'd say it's the why. This is Ecclesiastes' issue. Why? It's all vanity. So you got to know why we're on the mission, why we're here, why God has created us, put us in this place. And when you can satisfy that question, it answers everything else. And as much as life throws at you, if you know why, it's easy. So some of our application, true power is contentment. It really is the secret weapon. If you want patience, be content. If you're content, you won't lose your patience. True power is in contentment, and then be satisfied in the Lord. Let's read Psalm 16. Now we know David's life was hard. And David even strayed in his old age. He strayed in his middle age. Honestly, he started it great as a teenager and then just went bonkers the rest of his life. Let's just say it never says a man after God's heart twice. Just the once when he was a teenager. Chapter 16, verse 1. Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones, in whom is all my delight. The sorrows of those who run after another god shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out, to take their name on my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in a pleasant place. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure, for you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy, and at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. So we know of David's tears, we know of David's struggles, his difficulties, when Saul is chasing him, when the whole world is against him, his men try to stone him, and this is what he says: my lot has fallen in the right place. The lines have been set up for me. And he says, God, you are my portion. You are my strength. You are my refuge. You are the satisfaction of my soul. And I really believe that that's what got David through those days of difficulty. Not that he thought he was on some pilgrimage, not that he thought he was out there fighting for God, because he really wasn't. He was out there trying to survive. David was a vagabond with vagabonds around him, and he was just surviving. And sometimes that meant going to the Philistines. Sometimes that meant hanging out in Judah. Sometimes that was just hiding out in the desert, not doing anything, just writing songs. David lived a very useless and mundane life for a lot of years, upwards of 17 to 20 years. He really didn't have a function or a purpose. And yet he found comfort in his God, and he rejoiced in the Lord. And he says, my whole being rejoices. And it's like, David, you lost your wife. She was taken away, given to somebody else. Your best friend was killed in battle. You've lost everything. Your family you had to take to the Moabites and drop them off because you were fearful that they were going to get killed. He just struggled constantly. And yet he can say, I rejoice in the Lord. So being satisfied in the Lord is also a key to success. And then being at peace with your situation. Philippians chapter 1, Paul says this, verse 12. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are being more bold to speak the word without fear. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. This is Paul living in prison, and what he says is, hey guys, good news. God put me in prison so that I can reach Caesar's household with the gospel. He's using me in prison, everybody. And then Paul writes more letters and he says, hey guys, I've heard about what you're going through. I want to just sit down and write a letter to you in prison. And what's fascinating is if Paul was out doing the things he thought best, right? Like out there planting churches and building and establishing the gospel in all these places. In our mind, we're thinking Paul, the great missionary, he would be better serving the body of Christ by going and planting churches. But God had a better idea. He says, Paul, I want you to take a break, take a time out. I'm going to put you in a dirty, cold, dingy, dark dungeon. But hey, while you're there, I want you to write my words down. And I want you to speak to the church, not just in your generation, but in every generation. And so God did an amazing work through Paul in the worst parts of his life. When he was really suffering in prison, he took satisfaction knowing that God was using it for his eternal glory. And so that's what I mean by taking hold of something greater than yourself. And this is the difficult part because we have a tendency to lose that, especially in our generation, in our culture. The greater than us tends to be politics. It tends to be kind of work, like, oh, I build buildings. This is a me thing. Like, oh, it's, bigger than me is I get to build this amazing building and that's a landmark that has my name on it. Well, nobody knows that I built it. Nobody cares, to be fair. Nobody cares, okay? But God marks every conversation I have with Jesus. God marks every conversation that I tell people about Jesus. God marks every time somebody comes to faith by the gospel that I preach. God marks every word that I speak in this group. There are eternal things that I have to focus on. So in my life, I'm always balancing, okay, worldly things. You know what worldly things is? Loving my wife. Paul says it's better to be single than to be married, because when you're married, you have to worry about worldly things. My wife, I got to keep her happy. We got to do the house. We got to do the kids. We got to do the things. If I didn't have my wife, I could have just Jesus, and that's better, is what Paul says. So you could focus on heavenly things. But then I'm like, okay, well, I have my job. What is my job? Earthly thing. My 401k, earthly. My retirement, earthly. My real estate portfolio, earthly. It's all temporary. It's all going to go away. It's all useless. It's all vanity. At the end of the day, it's all vanity. I'm going to die, and I might be a billionaire. What good is it? Naked I came, and empty I'm leaving. So what is really valuable? I have to manage that in my life. I have to juggle that. I have to say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm sick. I don't feel good. I don't want to do this. I'm worn out. Jesus, I don't want to. And then, you know what? I got to go pay my dues. I got to go get my treasure in heaven. My greater calling must be fulfilled. I cannot neglect the greater things. It is most important that I serve Him. That's what counts the most. And so, what do? When you're juggling those balls, sometimes you're like, you know what? Earthly things, I got to let you go. I got to focus on heavenly things. And the less earthly things you have to manage, the more heavenly things you can focus on. That's why blessed are the poor. Luke says, blessed are the poor, not poor in spirit. He says, blessed are the poor. You know why? They don't have a lot of earthly things to worry about. They have heavenly things to worry about. They have a greater opportunity to serve God. Then they get riches, they get wealthy, and you know what they do? They forget. They forget God, and they start serving money instead of God. So we need to find that superpower called contentment. We need to be satisfied in the Lord and be at peace in our situation. It's difficult. It is extremely difficult, but with God, all things are possible.